Hello and welcome to Spokane County Spotlight. I'm Commissioner Al French, and my guests today are Dr. Jacquie Van Wormer, Spokane Regional Criminal Justice Administrator, and Ariane Schmidt, our Regional Project Manager for Spokane County and the City of Spokane. Last week, I sent our Communications Manager out into the community and asked our constituents if they had any questions for their county government. Several of the questions focused on two topics of particular interest: our county's law and justice system and mental health services. So I've asked Dr. Van Wormer and Ms. Schmidt to join us here today to provide their perspective. Before we get started, Jacquie, would you give us a little bit background about yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner. So I am the Spokane Regional Criminal Justice Administrator, and I've been in that position in a full-time capacity for the past year, but really 3 years total. And have a background, spent 20 years working as a criminal justice practitioner and also have worked in academia. And now I have this opportunity to sort of combine all of that experience and work in this capacity for Spokane County. Very excited to be leading these reforms that we're engaging in Spokane County that have really come to set a standard for the rest of the state, and actually we're receiving some national recognition as well.
Terrific, thank you. And Ariane, could you give our audience a little bit of background about some of the things that you're doing for Spokane County and the City of Spokane?
Absolutely. I've had the privilege of working in the city and county of Spokane for about 20 years, primarily in the arena of public safety, and just recently have been able to work on projects that are of regional nature that affect everyone, also in the public safety and justice arena. We worked on a countywide implementation for computer systems for law enforcement, and then also recently I've been able to work with Jacquie on taking many of the strategic initiatives of the Spokane Regional Law and Justice Council and crafting them into project format for us to then make those a reality.
Very good. Well, thank you very much to both of you ladies for all the great work that you're doing for the region. So let's get started with our questions. So our first question comes from Leanna.
What role does Spokane County play in our law and justice system?
So this is a question I often get. Spokane County serves as the agent for state government and providing numerous state responsibilities at the local level. Washington is one of only 5 states in the country where the cost for the criminal justice system is paid for at the local level as opposed to being paid for at the state. That's why approximately 75% of our general fund here in Spokane County's budget is dedicated to the criminal justice system. For example, we provide the court services for the entire county. Those courts include juvenile, district, and superior court. And on the law enforcement side, Spokane County Sheriff is a senior law enforcement officer in the county and is in charge of providing services for residents in the unincorporated areas of Spokane County. Additionally, we provide law enforcement services to the Spokane Valley through a yearly contract. We also provide detention services through the jail at the downtown county campus and at the Geiger Detention Center. To try and ensure efficiency and effectiveness in the law and justice system, Spokane County and the City of Spokane have formed the Spokane Regional Law and Justice Council. Jacquie, I understand that the SRLJC has developed a visual that outlines our regional law and justice system. Can you walk us through this visual?
Absolutely. So the visual in front of the viewers is a high-level visual for us that we use as we are looking at various initiatives in the city and the county. This came from the Law and Justice Council. We recently passed a 2017-2019 strategic plan, and we have various broad goals in that plan, including that we would emphasize a strong regional governance system in order to create more efficiencies, be more effective, really creating a focus on evidence-based practices and evidence-based processes. We want to employ programs and services that are most likely to reduce recidivism and most likely to keep our community safe, because that leads to a healthy and economically viable community, and that's really what we're focused on. We're also thinking more about having it be an offender-based system rather than being just about the charge. So addressing the underlying challenges that some of these individuals have within our criminal justice system. And of course, addressing racial and ethnic disparities, and really, of course, the overall goal is reducing recidivism and creating a healthy community. And so, as the viewers can see, there is, everyone knows, if you watch, Law and Order or CSI, there's often an event that brings law enforcement into contact with somebody, whether that be a 911 call or it's initiated by the officer on the street. And depending on the severity of the crime, they may or may not be brought to the jail, to our detention facility downtown. And should they be brought to the detention facility, they'll go through a booking process. And depending on the severity of the crime, they may be what we call booked and released, if it's a very low-level type of crime, or they may be held until they can make it to first appearance, which that is reflected as well here on this visual. And so I think sometimes for the community, that's concerning, where they see people booked and released. There are certain types of crimes that are considered lower level, and we have a court rule, it's called, in Washington State that judges must follow regarding whether or not somebody can be detained for a period of time pre-trial, or if they can be released. And so I'm sure I'll have the chance to talk about that here later. As they move through the system, something we just implemented is a new tool called the SAFER, which stands for Spokane Assessment for Evaluation of Risk. It's a risk assessment tool. So really we're trying to figure out who are the right people to keep in jail and who are safe to be released and supervised in the community. After that point, whether they're booked or released or held, then counsel would be assigned. The prosecutor, of course, has filed the appropriate charges, and then the case begins the process of moving through the system. What's unique about Washington that many people don't know is that we are not a unified court system. So in many states, it's one court. In Washington state, should you commit an incident and maybe there's a felony and a misdemeanor attached, you're going to end up in different courts. So we have a municipal court, a district court, and a superior court. So from a single incident, you can land in different courts. But here in Spokane, we've been very fortunate to not only we have our traditional court system that these individuals will move through, but we have our problem-solving courts. And this is basically problem-solving courts look to address the underlying challenges in these individuals' lives, whether that be drug and alcohol addiction, mental health. We have a veterans court for those that have served our country and now are suffering from behavioral health disorders due to that service, giving them an opportunity to not do jail time, but instead to get the treatment services, supports that they need. All of our programs here are very successful around that. And then, of course, we move to that point of disposition and sentencing, and depending on the severity of the crime, they may end up in a longer term incarceration with the Department of Corrections, or they may end up just doing some local jail time, depending if they have had credit for time served or if more time is ordered. And then we have very robust probation departments in both our city and our county municipal and district courts. An area that everyone can see here on the visual is a new area of focus for us is really around community reentry and how we do a better job supporting these individuals as they reenter the community.
So if you're convicted of a crime and the term of your incarceration is less than a year, you're going to be in, you're going to stay local, and you're going to stay in the county facilities, either at Geiger or main campus jail.
Yep.
If you're longer than a year, you're going to go to a state institution.
Correct.
The challenge is, and I look at this philosophically from the 50,000-foot level, is that one way or the other, these individuals that find themselves on the wrong side of the law are ultimately going to end up back in our community. And we want to make sure that we're spending the time and resources to make sure that when they re-enter the community, they do it as a contributing member of the community, as opposed to perpetuating the criminal activity that got them on the wrong side of the law to begin with and stuff. So when you talk about, you know, the programs that we've instituted and the different courts that we've instituted or created, it really is to make sure that we deliver the right justice for the right time. And so it's a very much more deliberate effort to try and make sure that in the holistic fashion we are helping to build citizens that are contributing members to the community. You know, when I first got on the Board of County Commissioners, I spent some time out at Geiger Correctional Facility and watching some of the interaction between some of the agencies and the folks that find themselves out there at Geiger. And It's amazing to me how many people at their late teens, early 20s don't know the difference between right or wrong because of the environment that they've grown up in. They've never been taught the difference between right or wrong. And so, you know, we end up with programs to help correct or at least educate them to a different way of thinking and stuff. So, yeah.
Geiger does have a great amount of programs and services and supports on, you know, basically, you know, within some limitations that they work with, and they work with a lot of volunteers from the community as well. So they really do an exceptional job out there with what they're given.
And one of the reasons why we spend so much time in this early steps with regard to who goes into the jail and who doesn't is because the jail isn't big enough to just go out and say, you know, if you got arrested, you're going to jail, because the facility downtown was originally designed for 462 inmates.
Correct.
And we regularly run anywhere from 700 to 900 people through there. We've been up over 1,000, 1,100 and stuff. So, and the jail is the most expensive way to deal with the incarceration element. If you can put somebody in treatment as opposed to putting them in jail, that's actually a less expensive option and alternative for the community in the whole.
Right. We actually know from the research that jail and prisons have what's called a criminogenic effect. So, you know, you're spending, for example, at the jail $130 a day, but yet we're doing nothing to get to those underlying thought processes, or to the addiction, or to the mental health needs, or to the employment needs, or the housing needs that these individuals have. And so instead, if you're simply incarcerated and you're not receiving any services out in the community, then we're actually have the potential to drive up recidivism in our community. And so the idea of getting to match to these offenders' needs while still providing accountability, I think that's very important for our community to know, that there's still a very high level of accountability through these problem-solving courts, or if an individual is released from the jail and they're able to be supervised by our pretrial service office, there's monitoring that happens there. Individuals come out and they're placed on electronic monitoring, for example.
So thank you. That's a great summary. And so our next question is from Anna. Let's go to the video.
I would like to know what our local government is doing at the county level to help youth who need mental health treatment.
So this is a question from Anna. This is an issue the SRLJC tackles frequently. So Ariane, why don't you address this one?
Absolutely, and I think Anna brings a great point, that really mental health stabilization is really for anyone of any age. And that's something that the Spokane Regional Law and Justice Council has recognized. And in just a few minutes, we're going to show you a video about the first step towards providing a facility for individuals to go to. This first phase is for adults, and we want to address that population first, but the long roadmap picture is once again to provide a facility for anyone of any age who needs help from mental health or co-occurring issues in need of crisis stabilization. So I would look forward to sharing this video with you.
Mental health is not that easy, and a lot of it goes untreated, but it needs to be addressed. We can, as cops, solve the issue for that particular moment in time, incarcerating them.
Get on the ground now!
Right now, law enforcement has no options. If somebody commits a crime and they have mental health issues, they have to bring them to the jail. Our jail is full. We have to be able to hold the right individuals, and we don't want mentally ill people in our jail.
At the city, our goal is to be the safest community of our size, and really what that means is giving our officers options as they have an event with someone, and currently they don't have those options.
Jails have really become a provider of last resort for our mental health population, and that's not where they need to be. They need to be in this sort of facility. And so that led us to looking to create this 16-bed crisis stabilization facility for law enforcement only.
And by having this facility, this option, it not only keeps our community safer, it serves those that come within custody the options that they really need.
So a diversion facility will save us time and not having to go to the hospitals to check these folks in the ER and wait around for several hours there.
Mental illness is on the uptick, and I think this is a great way for us to get them in the right place at the right time for the right kind of care, because the hospital emergency room is the most expensive place for care.
It'll keep these individuals out of the jail, which oftentimes will exacerbate their situation. It'll give us somewhere quickly we can drop them off and we know they're going to get the services they need for long-term care.
Having a safe location that is centrally located to where we can surround the client or the person in need with resources is a much better way to provide services versus trying to find them out in the community.
All the studies show that simply sending them to jail will actually increase their likeliness to return to jail. And if we have an opportunity to meet individuals where they are and actually provide them with the services that can stop that cycling door and actually get them out of the system, then we have an opportunity to help them and impact our community in a positive way.
When somebody's in crisis that brings them to that level, that is the time to get seen, to get triaged, to have somebody who is qualified to do that put their finger on it, not have that person be either incarcerated or released because there's no other option, and then 3 days later try to readdress an issue that you saw before. This is how we can start that treatment. This is how we can develop a follow-up plan for you to see if whether it's medication, if the medication level is working for you, and we start that process now rather than just and you know, to say a cliche, but put a Band-Aid on it and hope it doesn't come back, because it is. It's going to come back.
So that video provides a really good opportunity and an overview of our community. You know, Jacquie, what's the status of this proposal?
So we had a great work group that spent numerous months working together every Friday morning, bright and early. And just recently, they put that proposal in front of the Law and Justice Council, which unanimously approved it's called an implementation proposal, and basically gave blessing, gave the go-ahead to moving into phase 2. And so phase 2 will be about trying to secure the resources necessary and building an operations plan, looking for the contracted providers, and basically just getting that facility up and running. And so it is, as you could see from the video, it's a very critical piece that is missing currently from our criminal justice system. When we look at our jail statistics, upwards on any given day, 85% of the individuals in jail have a mental health or co-occurring disorder need. And so this is that opportunity for that facility, like law enforcement referenced in the video, to drop somebody off at this facility, get the services they need, rather than having to book into jail at a very costly, very costly, or to utilize the ER system, which is also very costly.
So, Ariane, why don't you talk a little bit more about your role with regard to the mental health facility? Can you expand a little bit about what is it that you're doing in that area?
Absolutely. It's been fun to be able to utilize something called project management best practices, into where we take basically an end goal, a business case. Why does something need to change? And encapsulate that into a structure where we put together a very distinct set of objectives, deliverables, a project team, a grouping of folks that work with the project team that are subject matter experts, and that group understands where they need to get to be successful in this endeavor. And in this particular case, it was creating an implementation proposal that they spent months vetting out the issues of how did law enforcement feel that this facility would work for them? How did the prosecutor's office feel that that worked for them? How did we see, did we have a facility already in close proximity to the jail that could be used? How could we partner with our current healthcare and mental health providers already in the community so that we could get this up and running? So what happens when we use this project management methodology, we get to our end deliverable, we are able to assess, did we do what this document asked us to do? We are able to then close that project, present it to our regional leadership like yourself, and then be able to say, do you like this? Does this concur with what you thought was going to happen in the beginning? And if so, we've got a baseline then to then move forward towards that next step of a project to once again bring this into reality.
You know, this whole conversation about criminal justice reform in the region and stuff is very timely. And there's a lot of excitement and anxiousness about getting this work done. And I think it's reflective of the fact that the work, we've known that we had to do something to make it better, to make it more affordable, because the cost is a big driver of a lot of the decisions that are made. But let's talk a little bit about all of the stakeholders that are at the table and some of the timing elements, because I know that there's, like I say, some anxiousness about let's get it done, let's get it done, let's get it done. Well, we want to get it done right.
Correct.
And we also, you've made very concerted efforts to make sure that there are a lot of voices at the table.
Right.
So talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Well, I always say, as you know, the saying, Rome was not built in a day, right? And we're operating in a very historical criminal justice system in our country. And I think that it's been very important for us to reestablish the Law and Justice Council, which has been able to open up lines of communication between agencies that didn't have to or didn't need to cooperate or collaborate at a time. And so building what we call a state of collaborative advantage, where people want to work together and they believe they can gain more by being part of a collaborative to push ideas forward. And it does take some negotiation and some willingness to leave maybe a little bit on the table. Yeah, there's some give and take to the process, absolutely. And I will say that we've built some really great teams. You know, on the Law and Justice Councils, everyone from the Sheriff Ozzie Knezovich to our elected prosecutor Larry Haskell, Tom Krasminski, who runs the County Public Defender's Office, Bonnie Bush, the Juvenile Court Administrator. We have 22 individuals, including 3 community members that serve on this council. And outside of that council, we have lots of work groups. And again, it's never perfect, but we get a lot of work done. And we do so in a collaborative environment, I think.
And I would like to add to that is the justice system is incredibly complex.
Yes.
The infographic we just showed you was a real deliberate effort to show something to someone that doesn't live and breathe in that every day, to get the high points. If we documented the whole justice system,
which we did,
takes about 6 feet worth of paper. And even the individuals that were mentioned by Dr. Van Wormer that work in this every day, sometimes they work in their particular area or venue, and by coming together as a group, it's actually made awareness even within the justice system to individuals who may not deal in a different part, either upstream or downstream, and that has had immense impact on that overall quality of service for individuals from the point in which they enter the justice system all the way to those that may have long-term presence there or are able to re-enter and re-enter well.
So as we're wrapping up the end of the show here, any final thoughts that you might have about the program or the successes we've had up to date?
I would love to highlight a few of the successes from the Law and Justice Council this past year. We were fortunate enough to be selected to be part of the MacArthur Foundation Safety and Justice Challenge, only 20 original sites, and then they narrowed it down to 10 for a deeper dive investment. And that is what has allowed us to, although work at a very sort of frantic pace, to put the SAFER tool into place, which was referenced on that visual. So that is, again, the Spokane Assessment for Evaluation of Risk. It's a tool that judges can now use in the courtroom to determine what is this individual's risk for failure to appear for court or for recidivism, should I release this individual from jail? So that is now available in all of the courts, and all the judges have been trained. We've trained over 127 individuals in the prosecutor's office, public defenders, judges, and so we're anxious to see how that tool has the impact that we're hoping it has on our jail population. Should somebody be determined to be safe to be released and out in the community, then we've built up a pretrial services department where we have monitoring and supervision for these individuals that are out in the community, and we're connecting them with services where appropriate. So those are just 2 examples of really a list of successes that we've had so far this year.
Ariane, any final thoughts? We've got about a minute left here.
Well, I think it is phenomenal to see that this group has come together and has a list of things that they want to accomplish corporately, way bigger than what we can do in reality. But everything is being brought in together in a collaborative method. It's not the Spokane City, it's not Spokane County, it is us as a region. And that really is exciting, both for us as public servants and for our community.
Great. Well, I'm afraid that we're out of time, so I'd like to thank our guests, both Dr. Jacquie Van Wormer and Ariane Schmidt. And I'm County Commissioner Al French. Thank you for joining us today on Spokane County Spotlight.